Welcome to The Source, a Waterbury Public Schools podcast dedicating to discussing relevant and timely topics that really affect our educational community and district. I am your host, Belen Michelis, alongside Superintendent co-host Dr. Ruffin, and we are here today in our first podcast to really talk about weather closures and dismissals. Joining us today are two amazing special guests. Let's welcome Dave Simpson, Director of Public Works for the City of Waterbury, and Nick Albini, Chief Operating Officer for the Board of Education. So Dr. Ruffin, let's jump in. Who are the key leaders within the district and the city who make these decisions about approaching inclement weather?
It's an entire team approach involving Public Works, involving our operations office, all of the schools and people at the site of the schools to evaluate what parking lots look like, as well as the potential for any other concerns that we have to have. It's a collaborative between the city and Waterbury Public Schools.
So let's set the scene here. What happens, or what factors do you guys take into place when, say, we know inclement weather is happening the night before school? So talk about factors and decisions you guys make.
Well, we look at this, the weather forecast throughout the day. Sometimes we're fortunate enough that the weather is consistent and the conditions are known the night before that they're not going to be good. And that is probably one of the easier decisions when you can do that the night before. That's not always the case.
And Nick, what factors do you take in place regarding school buildings?
So we always want to make sure safety is first and foremost for our students and staff and parents that may transport students, the buses. So we want to make sure that the maintainers can stay ahead of it and make sure that the sidewalks are cleared, the parking lots are cleared, ready for opening. That will determine a timely opening. When you get a significant snowstorm the night before, it's very easy to call no school. It's those 1 and 2 inch and time that it arrives, can we get the schools open on time?
So let's change the scene a little bit. Say we are now getting inclement weather and it's the morning, right? And so what do you guys take into place at that 2, 3, 4 a.m. time frame?
Well, again, we monitor those forecasts, days in advance and get some forecasts or predictions as to what time the storm may be hitting the Waterbury area. There's some real critical times, mostly being when the buses leave the depot, which is 6 o'clock in the morning. So I'm on the phone with Mr. Albini right around 4 a.m. To determine where are we going to go from here.
And what do you get from those phone calls, Nick? What do you take and direct it to Dr. Ruffin?
Dave and I will speak 10 of 4 o'clock. We'll talk about how are the streets, what reports have you received from the police department? Are they clear? Can they be cleared for a regular opening? Will a 2-hour delay be required? A late start? Is a 3-hour delay, which is seldom used but can be used. We don't want to lose the day of school, but we also want to make sure that it's a fruitful educational environment and it's safe for everyone to be there. So I'll have my conversation with Dave the night before, very early in the morning, and I'll call Dr. Ruffin and we'll have that candid conversation. How can we handle? It is going to stop early enough that a late start works, or it looks like it's going to be prolonged, or it's going to switch to rain, ice. It's always safety, but we want to make sure it's a safe environment.
So let's change the scene one last time. So what would happen, say, the kids are already in school, they're in their classrooms, and now we start seeing some snowflakes. What does that change? Does that change any factors that you guys may have?
Well, and again, I will say that Mr. Albini and I speak regularly during inclement weather, and we would have that conversation either the day before or even the 4 a.m. and say, okay, it looks like we can go into school at time, but I'm concerned about weather coming in at a certain hour and the requirements for the schools to be able to dismiss everybody in a timely fashion to get them home safely.
So we have to make that decision by 9 o'clock in the morning, 9:15 the very latest. We have to notify our food service, if we're not going to have a lunch. We want to make sure high school starts dismissing at 11 o'clock, where elementary is going to be in the 1 o'clock, And if they have an extended ride, they're still out there 2, 3, 4 o'clock. We have to make sure that they're safe. So we have to make that call early. We speak to the police department, the street department, food service, the bus companies, and we want to try to catch the bus companies when the drivers are coming back from their morning run, that they don't go home, that they go right back out and start picking up again with high school. So once they go home, it may be difficult to get them back in. So it really is a timely effort in order to make it a success.
And so with all those factors, we could tell, it takes a lot of decisions, collaboration between multiple stakeholders to really decide where we go with things, right? So as you may know, and I'm sure you've heard in social media, we get a lot of comments about why are we getting these announcements so late? We wish we could get them earlier. What do you say to those folks?
Well, one of the things that I would say is that weather is unpredictable. And sometimes when you're making those decisions, you have the best information that you have for the moment, and people are depending on you to make a decision quick. But decisions that are made quickly are sometimes not always the best decision. So you have to really depend on a lot of expertise, and you make the very best decision in the fastest time that you can. But you certainly want to be cognizant of the fact that people want to know even before the first snowflake falls, and you can't always know that because it affects so many different people, and you have to take so many different factors into consideration. So I understand when people get frustrated because they wish that you done it the same time that they heard somebody else was. But Waterbury tends to be a little bit different. You know, our hills, our streets, and the capacity to make things readily available for the safety of everyone, we have to take that into consideration.
So what should parents keep in mind, into the school year, right before the winter months? What should they keep in mind when it comes to inclement weather?
I think that it's always the best plan to have that conversation with students and among the family members. What are your plan A and plan B in the event that there is a late start, in the event there is no school, to arrange for childcare, to arrange for, the working situation with families, to have those conversations before the situation arises. And then the third conversation is to have the conversation and a plan B or a plan C about what happens if we're already in session and we have to have an early dismissal, and students then are going to be home a lot earlier than parents may have originally expected. Because as the weather is unpredictable, I think there should be a minimum of 3 plans, and it should be discussed before anything happens.
And as you know, communication is such a key component when it comes to notifying the district and our staff and our faculty. So what would you say in advance of the school year, coming into September or August, what should parents and students really keep attuned when it comes to notifications?
Well, I believe social media is huge. A number one source for families in Waterbury Public Schools is Parent Square. And I cannot encourage enough how important that is to have accurate telephone numbers. If people move or the phone numbers change, it's important to communicate with the school immediately, get the correct phone number into that database. So our parent squares will actually go out to the families that it was intended for. That you follow Waterbury Public Schools on our website and on our own social media page, because that's where you get the accurate information and answers to other questions that you may have in a timely fashion.
So you heard it here on The Source. Keep your Parent Square information up to date. Let's make sure that our schools really have everything up to date so that we are aware of what is going on when we make these big calls. And I'm sure from the students' perspective, I'm sure you're excited when you get that 4 or 5 a.m. call coming from Dr. Ruffin, and probably follow her on Twitter, because I know, Dr. Ruffin, you like to break the news there to kids, and I'm sure you get huge followings because you tell them school's closed.
Well, they do respond very quickly and send it out whenever it happens at 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning. Yes, I do see a lot of those.
Well, thank you, Dr. Ruffin, Nick, Dave, for having us today. And this is the conclusion of our first podcast here. Until next time on The Source.